Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are finally going to run our application and see how it works. But even before that, you do need to make sure that you have made certain changes in your application. So the first thing which you need to do here is that I actually forgot to get a reference to mauth as well as mdatabase, which we have declared over here. So what you need to do is that first you need to get the Firebase authentications instance by typing this line of code right here, and then what we need to do is that as we need to store or as we need to have a reference to the database, what we will do is that we will also get a reference to the database child, which is called as users. So you do need to do that, and once you have added this line of code, what you also need to make sure is that you need to go to your authentication tab on the Firebase console, and in here what you need to do is that you need to make sure that the sign-in method is enabled, and after that you do need to go to the database as well. And in database, what you have to do is that you have to go to rules, and it's actually going to take a while for this thing to load up. So in the rules, you have to set the authentication rules to be true. So what that will ensure is that we are actually able to read the data only when the authentication is set to not equal to null. That means whenever you actually want to read the data, the authentication should not be equal to null, and for the write permission as well, the authentication should not be equal to null. That means the user should always be authenticated first in order to read or write data. So make sure that you do this thing in the storage as well. So if you move on to the storage rule, we have actually set the storage rule equal to null as well, but in this case we are going to change it to not equal to null, so that now the user actually requires authentication. So once these changes are made and everything else is done, what you could do is that you could also ensure that when you register the user, so this is the register activity. So what essentially should happen here is that this intent right here should then redirect us to the login activity. So right now we have the register activity here and the login activity here. So this intent is going to redirect us to the login activity, and in the login activity itself, when the user successfully logs in, what should happen is that there should be an intent which is going to redirect the user from the login activity to the main activity. So that is the one thing which you need to keep in mind. So once this thing is done, we are good to go. So now you could just go ahead, save the code and run this application on our device. And as you could see, now the application is up and running. So let me just sign up the user in the name of, let's say, Robin, and let's say the email is robin@gmail.com. let's say the password is robingmail. So when I hit register, it's going to redirect us to the login activity now, hopefully. Yeah, and now here I'm going to log in the user with the same credentials. So that's going to be robin@gmail.com, and the password is going to be robingmail. So when I type this thing in and when I hit login, as you could see, now we are redirected to the activity which is our Insta app activity, which is the main activity right over here. So that's how we are successful in logging in the user, and you're not able to see the image over here because it actually takes a lot of time for the image to load up depending upon your internet speed. So what you could do is that you could add some image compression algorithm over here, so that either you could compress the image, or what you could do is that you could also store the image's thumbnail instead of the entire full-size image over here. So that's it for this lecture, and hopefully everything went fine with your code as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to provide you this code in the last lecture of the section, so that you are basically able to use this code if your code does not work. And if you have any doubts or difficulties, or if you don't understand any line of code or anything like that, then what you could do is that you could simply hit me up with a question, and I'll try my best to answer you as soon as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.